welcome back to the Colour Cave, where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem, and today we are going to do a little bit of watercolouring, but we're actually going to be colouring in, so just want to explain myself a little bit. My good friend Julia K over at Julia K Art Studios, a link to her YouTube and her Etsy will be in the description, just in case you're interested. Julia is my Swedish friend who hand makes her own watercolour paints, and recently she sent me a little sort of package full of goodies, and one of the things that she sent me was a set of her newest watercolour colouring cards, or prints if you like, and this is what they look like. So she has designed these images to be done in watercolour, and they're printed on really nice watercolour paper, but she's made the line work quite pale so that obviously with using the transparency of watercolour they're not sort of sticking out like a sore thumb. These were available on our Etsy store. I think they've sold out. I do know that she's organising another print run, so if you haven't had a chance to grab these and it's something that you're interested in, then I think they will be available again at some point pretty soon. Julia, if you see this video, you can let people know in the comments and I'll pin the comment at the top. There's a couple of different ones with porches, and you know, there's little raised beds there with some foliage in, and then we've got more of like a yard situation here. This one's my favourite, and it's because it's got animals in it, but the thing that makes me laugh is there's a couple of chickens kicking about here, but there's also a chicken on the roof of what I'm assuming is a well, or it looks like honesty boxes for something, or maybe they're feed bins, I don't know. Again, Julia, let me know. But on top of that is a chicken that's got its backside in the air because it's, you know, it's foraging about, because there's obviously some greenery that's growing on the roof of this structure, and that just really tickles me. And I really like this as well because there's tree trunks in it, and most of you know that I'm quite a fan of trees. So we've got some lovely images here. I think these are absolutely adorable, and I'm really excited to do a bit of painting in them. Now, the other thing that Julia has sent me is her latest set of paints, which are the Dimma set. And these are just absolutely gorgeous, and I'm going to try and incorporate these colours into these lovely images that Julia has sent over to me. Okay, so I've only taped down top and bottom just because our image goes right to this edge and I want to be able to paint it all. Okay, so this is what we're going to work with, and what I want to do is start with this sky area, and I've already got an idea in my head how this is going to go. So with this Jackson's quill brush, I am just going to wet the area. So I've got the versatility with this brush because it's got this really nice point on it. I can, when I'm putting this water down, I can get into all these tight spaces without too much hassle. Just get this squished out a bit. Still have to work fairly quickly. I haven't worked with this paper before. I should have done my research. I don't even know what type of watercolour paper this is. I'm sure we shall find out as we go along. Okay, so that's that first section, and this section's pretty dry over here already. You don't want puddles of water sitting on your paper, but if you want time to work with it and work with your colours, it does need to be quite wet. And let's just get stuck straight in. So I'm going to grab this really dark Harold colour. Goodness me, I don't know why I can't say that. Oh, goodness me. And I want to just straight across the top there. Whoom. Now, the wonderful thing about this is, and it's one of the reasons that I've grown to like watercolour. Initially, when I first tried it, I did not enjoy myself at all. And I learned that had a lot to do with the paints that I was using. And secondly, no one told me that watercolour, the outcome of what you're doing will depend a lot on the paper that you're using. I wish someone had told me to spend money on paper rather than anything else when I first started to watercolour. That would have been lovely advice, and I would probably have enjoyed myself a bit more. The videos are actually really funny to watch now because I was so frustrated. Like, I was super frustrated, and I was like, oh, I'm never doing this again. I didn't like it. And a lot of it was to do with the paper. And those videos came in like a sort of two-part series. So you can check back. If you go to the painting playlist, I might even link one of them in the end card. Yeah, I'll link the first part in the end card for you. And if nothing else, it's a really good giggle just watching me get really annoyed about why I can't do things and all the rest of it. But I found watercolouring very difficult. And I would still say even now, I am no pro, like not by any stretch of imagination, but I enjoy it a lot more than I used to. Okay, so we're just going to let that dry, and you can see because I've wet the paper, the paint has started to soak down and it's starting to give us quite a nice gradient, but we're going to go over that a couple of times to get that really nice intense colour. And I can just work on these wee sections now, and I'm basically just doing the same thing. Paint this time. Oh, goodness gracious me. Okay, right, this is a prime example. This is really fixable and there's absolutely nothing to panic about, which is really good. We are going to lift some of this off now. I like to use a rag because I can wash them, but you can do this with like kitchen roll or a paper towel, if that's what you call it. And you can just dab some of it up, and because this is still wet, we can still manipulate the paint and move it around. So you can see there, just by that one dab, I've kept this dark area, which is obviously consistent with what's going on up here, and I've still been able to pull it down and lighten it up as I'm going down. I do want to add like a tiny bit more in here. Okay, so my first observation is that you have to be really, really, really light-handed when you're picking this paint up because it is really intense. Now I'm assuming that somewhere along here there's going to be a horizon. So again, working in these smaller areas here. Now if I take my little number 4 round here, then I can spread this about, and that's just giving me that lighter colour that we're looking for. So while that's drying, we'll move on to another area. And I think here what we need to do is we need to go back to this big quill brush, and I'm going to use this Eelof colour. And I want to do the same thing again. So this is all going to be greenery up in here. Now, I need to be careful going around my chooks here because I want the chooks to be white. Jock's just put his head on my knee. I see you. Sometimes, normally when I'm working, you know, like my proper job as I call it, he... I don't know whether he just feels a bit left out or whether he just wants a bit of affection because he feels he hasn't had some, but he just comes up to me and it's randomly throughout the day and he just plonks his head on my knee, and all he wants is like you just to give his head a little rub and his ears a little scratch, and sometimes he hops up, you know, and puts his head on my shoulder and he comes for a little cuddle, and that lasts about 20 seconds and then he just hops back down again. He's a sensitive soul as our Jock. Alright, so there's kind of like the inkling that that building may or may not be lurking behind that area in the picture. I'm going to have to wet this bit down here again. I got sidetracked there. Fixed it. I might even pop a wee bit of that Eelof in here. Oh. Okay, now so thinking particularly about my tree trunks, I think we'll do a wee bit of mixing here. So just grab me wee palette. And I tend to use a separate brush for mixing my colours that I do for actually painting. And I've got one of these Faber-Castell angled brushes. Now these came with a set of the Faber-Castell gelatos, so they're meant to be kind of like craft brushes. But I've used the same one for like 1.5 years and it's never really caused me any issues. So I'm confident. So I'm just going to squish a little bit of that Eelof into here, and if I add a tiny drop, like a teeny weeny drop of water like that, then I can essentially clean my brush off, if that makes sense, you know, in the water, and just squeeze this out at the end. Now I'm going to add a teeny weeny little bit of Albert to gradually see how we're going to change this colour. I know obviously roughly what direction it's going in, but just because we're not technically primary colours. Okay, so we're still pretty Albert looking. With a really, really wet brush, I want to just splodge that in there, and then I'm going to come up to my tree trunk at the back here and just pop that in. And we'll kind of squish it about a bit. Now the thing is with this tree, it's kind of in the background, and one of the sort of principles of art in general is that the further away things are, the sort of more, not paler, but the mistier they look. If you ever look out across a view somewhere, look at the hills or trees or mountains or whatever are far away, they look lighter than the ones that are in the foreground or closer to you. So in order just to kind of simulate that, I'm just taking a wee bit of this off again. And then when we come to do this tree trunk here, we're going to use this in a much more concentrated form. Now I'm gonna need more paint than that. I'm perfectly aware of that. Again, that's something that I learned quite early on when I started to watercolour was that always mix more paint than you think you need, because you think you've got enough and then you don't, and then when you try to mix the same colour again you can't get the same shade, and it's very frustrating. So we're going to take a little bit more care over this, and we're going to spend more time on detail and building up a few layers. But first of all, just the same as the rest, just make sure this is quite dry because I don't want it bleeding too far in. If I just pop down a quick layer of water, I'm not going crazy with this. It doesn't need to be that wet, but just a little bit of water to help us along, and then I can grab some of this paint and just get that initial layer down, and then we can put subsequent layers on top and really work on some texture, because obviously this is a very, very textured subject and it's one of my favourites. I did a tree study in my sketchbook and also my watercolour sketchbook not that long ago, and I'm having that. I haven't really drawn trees much in the last little while. It's mostly been animals recently, so I would quite like to do that. I have been neglecting my sketchbook. I've been doing a lot more painting just recently, and my sketchbook's looking pretty lonely, so I might draw some trees. I like drawing trees. Trees are fun. Very relaxing to draw and paint trees as well. I don't know why, but I think it is anyway. I want to try and mix a couple of variations on my greens as well. But before we do that, this part's nearly dry, so I want to put another layer of paint on top of that. Also, disclosure today, I am doing this video in my pyjamas. It is a Saturday morning, and this is literally the only time I have to film a video, so I am doing it first thing, and I'm not getting dressed to do it. Obviously you guys will never see my pyjamas in this particular video, so cool. Do any of you paint in your pyjamas? If you do, I'd love to hear about it. Okay, so I'm just adding a bit more water here, and I'm being careful to go around my tree bits there because that will start to bleed, but I'm not really going to be putting much paint down there. I'm just bringing this down so that the colour can travel. And I'm going back to Harold, and then we can sort of squiggle it in here. So say it's not so much of an issue down here really. But we'll pop some down in there. Right, so that you can see there, I've got a bit more colour down there, and you can just keep going back to that and keep going back to it, and you can get it as dark as you please. So while that's drying, we're going to try and mix some of the green shades that I would like. I'm going to add a touch of this Ingrid, which is the yellow colour. Okay, test this out here. Okay, I think that's very similar to the Eelof, it's just a sort of darker version, so I think I want to add a little bit more Ingrid. Just sort of lighten that up a little bit. Yeah, that's better. Can you see the difference between these two? I'm going to start just with the Harold. Now this will be interesting. This will be interesting, because this is really intense, this colour. Now obviously thinking about our colour theory, blue and yellow make green. Chuck it in. Ooh, this looks very similar to this one, but I'm going to let it dry and see what happens, because oftentimes they dry quite different from each other. Okay, so I'm going to use that first colour that I've mixed to do some work on my greenery here. So if I take that, first of all, I'll pop this in here, make this little bush into something exciting. Yeah, do you know what? Oh. Just going to dab that out and make it look like it's sort of, you know, at the bottom of this tree trunk. That's quite a nice effect. Ha! Love it when we have happy accidents. So again, similar to what I did with the sky, I just want to pop in a bit more of this, the Eelof, like the Eelof neat, just so that we're getting a little bit of variation. And you know, it's not all samey and boring, because what's the fun in that? That's the whole point of watercolour. That gives us a nice bit of contrast as well for our bush. I can just dab that out. This is still damp, so we've got a bit of room for manoeuvre here. I do want this, particularly this part here, this greenery on the roof of our little structure here, I want that to stick out like a sore thumb. So I'm going to use a colour called Eelof, not to be confused with Eelof, which is the one we were just using. And Eelof is this colour here, and it is absolutely gorgeous. There it is swatched out. It's a really nice, rich, what I would call a spring green if it was a pencil. So and we all know that my brain works in coloured pencils. So again, just the same thing again. I want to get a nice layer down first. Now, it strikes me as quite funny that as someone who is a self-confessed pencil person, like I really am, and I am enjoying painting now, but I still think of myself as more of a pencil artist. There, I was gesticulating too hard, they're dribbled on my paper. Okay, so that's going to give me a slightly different hue there, and it's just nice because it's just going to pop out a little bit. And I kind of want it to be the focal point of the picture because it's funny, because it's a chicken's ass. It's juvenile. I'm going to quick stick my layers down on here as well. So we're going to do a bit more work because this tree's got like kind of like separate bushels everywhere. We will spend a little bit of time doing some detail on that. But again, initially, I just want this base colour down, which is going to be the second green colour that I mixed. And I do want it to be quite light. So putting a little bit of water down on the paper first. And again, not trying to get smooth coverage here because it's trees. There's nothing smooth about trees. See, this is like the really fun part. Well, all of it's fun. That's not fair, but I like trees. Dabby. Here we go. Right, so with my little brush now, my Van Gogh brush, I want to use the Albert in its raw form. And I'm going to use this for most of the woodwork in the structures. Well, in my little world, these are wooden framed. So in with my little brush now. Just looking at the sky outside, it was absolutely like glorious sunshine when I got up earlier, and the sky is just getting darker and darker. And this always happens because I was thinking to myself, oh, hang my washing out this morning, you know, seeing as I was up nice and early. Hang my washing out, get all that done, yeah. Nope. All these teeny weeny window frames. Oh no. That didn't go according to plan. Oh my goodness, that was 0 points for precision right there. Yeah, I had to nip outside there. So my hand's cold now and I've like totally cramped up. I've decided I'm going to make the door of the house this really bright green that I've used up here, but I'm obviously going to make it a lot more concentrated because I think that's going to look lovely in there. I'll maybe add the doorknob back in with a wee bit of black Posca once I'm finished. Oh yeah! So yeah, still using Albert. Here's we go on, we're over here. So use it in its purest form here, just to paint in this part here. Again, just to give us a little bit of variation, that sort of thing. And maybe this post that runs along here as well, but I need to wait for the little boxes to dry before I tackle that. I am going to have to go and change my water. Look at that, that's disgusting. Next step, back with this big brush, clean water. All the way down here. Maybe a little bit in here. Oh, that was a lot. That was a lot. Come on, Gem. And then I want to grab this quill brush again. I'm going to dip into my Ode, or maybe it's Ode, I don't know. Just having fun with this. So I'm really loading the brush up with this colour, and I want to stick that in over the top of this darkest part so that it looks a little bit like a night sky. Or the remnants, you know, the sort of tail end of a night sky. So you just see a little bit of the stars twinkling, but not a huge amount. Now bearing in mind this paint does have a grey sort of undertone to it. But when that dries and we tilt it in the light, you'll be able to see a few sparkles, and that is exactly what I want. Okay, for the roofs of the houses, I am going to go in with Siri. And again, I think I'm going to have to do like quite a few layers of this so that it's really intense and it stands out. I'm just trying to turn this around so I don't put my hand in any of the parts that are still drying. So when I'm doing this part here, I'm keeping the brush quite dry and picking up as much paint as I can just on the tip. I'm really enjoying the versatility of this Jackson's quill brush. I just realised I missed a pillar here with the Albert, so I'm just going to remedy that right now. Again, just being careful not to stick my hand in anything. Oh, wee bit of bleed there. That's okay. It's not a disaster. Well, not yet anyway. Just a wee bit of thirsty brush. There we go, because we can go back over that, that's fine. So going back to my Eelof now. Just a paler ink. Oh goodness me, what happened there? A paler incarnation for these door panels. like so. And maybe we could paint this little square in here the same colour. Square? It's not a square, it's a triangle, Gem. Come on. For these, for the actual buildings, I'm going to use the Ingrid, but it's going to be quite, not wishy-washy, that's the wrong phrase entirely, but I know what I mean. Alright. Maybe I should have watered that down slightly. Oh, never mind. Oh. Okay, straight away I'm not happy with how bright this one is, so just added a little bit of water there. And I'm just going to do a bit of squishing about to move some of that pigment round and, you know, spread it a bit more thinly around the rest of this area. And I'm thinking this may be a little bit darker in here just because it's in this sort of porch area. I might be completely wrong, but that's... And then just with what's left, okay, maybe that's not quite enough. I'm just going to fill in this little part in here. Again, we're just kind of giving the impression that the building is there. We're not really going to do anything specific with that, but I think you'll agree that that looks reasonably sensible. And we can start adding in some areas of interest in our trees. Under here maybe. Just soften this out a little bit because it's quite harsh in places. Now I'm going to go back to this Eelof, which is the one that isn't in the Dimma set. And I just want to start adding in a little bit of detail here. This little chick with his backside in the air is my favourite. Yeah! This is so much fun. I think I'll just stick with this. And Julia does have, like, she's got these little sort of, they look like ferns. And I might just water this down and have this little front part here in this sort of green. Okay, the last sort of area that we need to put a base layer on is this wall round the bottom of here. And I'm just going to use a sort of greyish shade for that. So I've got Darcy here, which, again, I'll just show you. If I let that water down, it's going to give us a nice shade of grey without being overpowering. Okay, so that's us got the bulk of the area covered now, and I'm just going to start jumping back and forth between various points in this picture and build up the things that I want. So I'm kind of thinking like working from the background forward, so I want to do a little bit more with this tree. I'm just wanting to sort of smooth out this last layer of colour. I don't want to take away all the texture I've put in, but I just want to soften it up a little bit. And I think I may actually just leave that tree as it is, you know, once I've finished this part. Yeah, I actually think I'm quite happy with it like that, so I'm just going to go with that as it is. And I just want to take this little brush now and use a light squidge of this just to put in some details. Again, I'm not paying too much attention to that because it is quite far in the background. This section here is really pale, so if I just water it down on here and then I can sort of touch this up in here. And the same, this section up on the edge of this greenhouse, it's just a little bit too pale. It looks as if it's barely been painted. So I'm just going to add another bit of Eelof to that, not to be confused with Eelof. And again, I'll maybe just damp that out a little bit. Now I was kind of looking for a shimmery shade for my greenhouse here. I think I might go with Verita Serum, which was one of the colours that came in the potions set. This one here. Because it's got a bit of a shimmer to it. But if we really water that down, it's just going to give us a sheen rather than a lot of pigment. And yeah, I think I'll just go for it and use that on my little greenhouse here. I might use that on all the windows actually, that would be exciting. Yeah, let's do that. Why not? Yeah. Okay, so that's nice. That's just going to give us a little bit of colour without too much. Okay, so back to these roofs now. So I'm trying to sort of work through this methodically now. So back to Siri or Siri. Better with the big brush. I thought it might be. No right or wrong way to do art, guys. If you want to use a number 10 brush, you use a number 10 brush. And obviously while I've got the same paint out on this brush, I'll just do this side as well. It's interesting to note the difference between this big number 10 and that quill brush. This brush holds way less water despite its gargantuan size compared to the quill. So that's quite interesting. I've got this little step here and I think I'm going to use that Darcy grey colour for the step. Okay, I can work on this tree trunk now. So the colour that I mixed, it's started to evaporate and it's quite concentrated now, and that's ideal for what we want to go for here. So really all I'm doing is just putting in some detail. I could probably actually do it with a smaller brush than this, but just out of principle because I'm stubborn. I'm going to prove it can be done with this brush, okay? Yeah, And I'm not doing anything spectacular, I'm just kind of adding in some lines where I maybe think they should be, and also taking into account the lines that Julia has left us as well. You know, she's left little spaces where there's clearly a knot in the wood. And this, to me, like, this is the fun part of watercolour painting. This is the part that I enjoy, is making things look like you've not just stuck a layer of paint down on them, and that they actually have some life about them. I suppose this part's more like drawing, maybe that's why. Still convinced I'm not a painter, guys. And I might just put a little tickle of this Eelof in some of these areas as well. Again, just, it is quite a delicate colour, like nothing drastic's going to happen if I do this, but it might just be interesting to add this in a few spots. I'm not that brave. Okay, good. So just while I'm on that same sort of colour, and I'm just using this tapping motion to give the idea that it's grass, and then I can fill this in on this corner like this. I have just obliterated Julia's signature. I'm sorry, Julia. It is tiny. It's like down here. It's so small. It's very, very deliberate, I feel. I'm in love with these little chickens. I keep looking at them and they just make me chuckle. They're just making me laugh. I find stuff like this really relaxing, especially because there's no sort of, I don't know. I'm not doing very well explaining myself here, am I? I just don't feel that there's any pressure for anything to look a certain way. And I suppose it goes back to that thing about adult colouring books as well. There's no pressure on you, like nothing has to be done a certain way. And I tend to put that pressure on myself with my own drawings, whereas I seem to be able to relinquish that feeling of guilt when it's someone else's artwork, because I know that I've got no idea of what their original intent was or what they would have done with it. And the fact that they've made it available for someone else to do as they please with tells me, well, just go for it and do what you think's going to be cool. And that's pretty much what I'm doing. So I'm just using this Darcy. I'm not picking out, again, because I wasn't really going with a specific light source, although it's obvious that it's coming somewhere from the front. Just by using a really light washed out grey type colour, then I can add in a few little shadows and things without them being really, really obvious. Like under here, maybe under here. Again, it's more of a suggestion rather than, oh, this is, you know, this is what's actually happening here. And I think sometimes it's just nice to give people that opportunity to see where you're going with it, but not necessarily agree with it and make up their own minds. Again, like even around these bushes, just like literally a few dots just to pick out certain areas is not going to do any harm at all. Interest here. I think these are supposed to be flowers. I might pop them in with a bright pink Posca or something just for funsies. I am going to, in fact, let's be brave. I was going to put a little doorknob in my Posca pen, but no, do you know what? I'm perfectly capable of doing it with paint, seeing as I technically am a painter. See? Absolutely fine. Not a problem. Not a problem. And I've just decided at the very last kick, I am going to use Harold for some blue. Maybe they're flowers, maybe they're not. I just want a little bit of interest in there. Okay, I think I'm done. I'm probably not, but I'm going to say I'm going to say I'm done. For all you lovers of the peely tape moments. Ooh. Oh, I've had a little bit of bleed under there. That's a shame. Okay, so if I hold this up and tilt it in the light now, you should be able to see the lovely shimmery roofs. A little bit of shimmer on the greenhouse in particular, maybe some of these windows, and also my little sparkly sky that's going on there as well. Yeah, that's why I love these paints. They're awesome for that. Okay guys, that is me. I am all done for today. I want to thank you very much for watching. I hope you've had a good time, and if you are interested in grabbing some of these for yourself, I do believe, as I said, that Julia is having them reprinted, so keep an eye on our Etsy store. The link is down in the description if you fancy some of these yourself. I'm absolutely delighted that she sent these to me, and it just makes me feel a little bit warm and fuzzy inside because she really is very, very good to me. So thank you, Julia. I appreciate that. She never told me she was doing this. That's what got me. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and we shall see you back in the cave really soon for another video. So have a good day, everyone. Bye for now.